striking with satanic force will crush their fabled Christ.
You guys are hired to protect the audience, not to fucking beat them up!
Because that's the only true God. The God within everything. And not this control freak telling you to bow down and kneel before what I say.
It's called black metal music and encourages devil worship and the desecration of churches.
There's no denying it. Metal music is controversial. Rammstein frequently stirred the pot in conservative countries for singing about taboo sexual experiences. There were extensive calls to ban the birth leg of Cannibal Corpse's '06 tour, and a mere mention of the name Burzum is enough to throw some people into a rage. But do these controversies really exist in the Australian metal scene today?
Locally, not at all. Not at all. I think it's way too small to have any sort of such controversies.
That's Chris Jones, one of the two guitarists in the Sydney-based heavy metal band Ouroboros, and he's not alone in his opinions about why the local scene is so different to that of overseas. Dan, who runs the heavy metal store at Red Oak Records in Sydney, agrees, but he also feels that the differences are more embedded in sociological reasons.
The fans and maybe bands aren't as diehard as the Europeans are. Like, they haven't had Christianity forced on them, or they haven't had churches built, and yeah, kids will listen to Burzum and stuff, but they don't feel the need to go and burn a church down.
In many respects, church burning is at the top of the list of heavy metal controversies, with over 50 churches allegedly being burnt by black metal fans and musicians in Norway. Many of the misconceptions surrounding metal stem from the actions of the black metal movement from 1991 to 1996.
Some of the stuff some of these people do is pretty intense, you know, like especially with all the church burnings in Norway and things like that. That's probably the most controversial metal scene, I guess, is the Norwegian black metal scene, or was the Norwegian black metal scene. Murder, killing of homosexuals, church burnings, things like that.
In Australia, however, there has only been one documented case where a church arsonist has admitted to being influenced by heavy metal music. According to Chris, it is the religious and social tolerances in Australia which stops fans from engaging in similar acts.
If you really take a look at Norwegian history and current times and things like that, they feel like they have a lot to break free from, religious institutions, and especially over there, whereas you look at Australia, it's so young, there's nothing to really worry about over in Australia, and I think that's probably why some of these big things aren't happening here, there's nothing to break free from. Like, how can you be angry when you can do whatever you want?
So due to this religious tolerance in a fairly unrepressive society, very few metal fans have a real problem with the mainstream in Australia. They usually find it boring or somewhat annoying, but few feel the need to lash out against it and each other. Their main release is at live shows, and yet even there, the so-called violent attitude that is synonymous with metal is pretty much non-existent.
There's no real been any violence, as far as I'm aware, at shows. No one's been, murdered or beaten to within an inch of their life.
And on the off chance that a live show has the potential to stir up some controversy, it is usually hidden so far away that no one except the fans know about it.
For instance, if there was a metal show on and they, burnt 20 inverted crosses around the stage, I don't think it's probably in a pub in fucking Blacktown or something, or it's probably, it's so small that no one would probably even know about it. It's only going to be metal people going to shows who's going to know.
My name's Nick Petrov. I'm involved with a company called Just That Rock Productions. I'm actually the booker and tour manager for the company and organisation.
While controversies may not be as apparent to the fans or local musicians, when you work with international bands that are coming from countries where these ethically questionable or even criminal acts are occurring, the controversies begin to rear their heads. Nick and Just Say Rock met these problems head-on in 2007 when they organised a tour for Swedish death metal outfit Marduk.
Marduk came out, the band's visas were literally approved 3 hours before they got on the plane to come to Australia. Department of Immigration at that stage was very strict and very heavy-handed. It was an election year. The actual foreign minister of the time was involved in the process of it.
Nick's experiences have shown him that it is really only when a politician or interest group draws attention to a band in this way that they are then considered controversial in mainstream society. But to avoid repetitions of the Marduk situation, he admits that at times, some unfortunate preemptive precautions have to be put in place.
We've done Immortal, we've done Cradle of Filth, we've done Marduk, and we've actually specified to them, just tone the show down a little bit, because Australia is a conservative country. The government is still aligned that way.
But even in these instances, which are few and far between, the controversy generally stops at a political level.
I doubt the average person really knows sort of what goes on in metal too much. I think they sort of don't even get past the harsh sound of it.
The general public only care if there's a negative thing to be said or negative thing happens, man. I mean, if something good happens, I mean, no one gives a shit.
But despite all of this, metal is still likely to be seen by mainstream society as something negative. According to Nick, this basically revolves around how metal bands present themselves, and the outcome is that they become a scapegoat for controversy, mostly due to mainstream society's lack of understanding about the music, the themes, and the fact that people who listen to metal and enjoy the music are just like everyone else out there.
Lady Gaga coming down, although she touches on some explicit content and sings about some explicit content, the music's accepted and the music's boppy and poppy, she gets let in. Metal it stirs up all these emotions that people don't understand, so it's always going to have this controversy attached to it.